Okay, then I think some more people might be joining, but I think we'll start now, given that it's only an hour and we need the time of that hour. So welcome, all of you. I am happy that you've made the time to be here, and we're so happy to present to you our progress with our product Clearly BIM in making digital permit checks and combining BIM with 3D environments. And of course, we're very happy to present our interesting guest speakers from Estonia and the Netherlands, who will fill you in on their development and ambitions. Our goal today is to show you what Clearly BIM and BIM-based checks could mean to you, your work, your future, by showing you examples of the concrete use of BIM-based checks. We will be recording this webinar. I want to make you aware of this, and we can send it to you afterwards. I will present myself now shortly. My name is 𝗁𝗁𝗶𝗿𝗲. I'm the sales executive of the Nordics for Future Insight, and I'm also a project manager for development and implementation of our software. And then I think we will turn to our agenda. You are welcome to ask questions during the presentations in the chat, and we will get back to you. There is time for questions at the end, as you can see, and we can also, of course, answer in the chat on your questions. First, we will introduce Future Insight shortly and discuss what BIM-based digital checks and the combination with 3D environments, why are they so important nowadays, followed by a demo of Clearly BIM by Marianne 𝗶𝗿𝗍𝗍, showing our work with, amongst others, the Finnish automated permit checks that we just presented a little while back. And then Estonia's first, Chris shares with us their innovative goals and development in the field of digital permit checks and BIM in the 3D environment. We have made digital permit checks with them, and we're good partners also in the digital permit check 𝗀𝗁𝗶𝗿𝗲 project, and they are a real front runner in their field. Jan Saar could unfortunately not make it today, but I'm sure Chris will do really good by himself. And then Wouter Kolbeek will tell us how BIM models of his corporation Woonstad property are combining BIM with the 3D city of Rotterdam, connecting stakeholders in the building life cycle. Also very interesting. And then it's time for questions. Who are we? Well, Future Insight is a Dutch company. It is founded in 2014, and our philosophy is that we develop tools that are using open standards, they're web-based, they're able to link to other software, and we want to make them as easy and intuitive as possible. And our innovative strength is that we develop together with our customers what they need in an agile manner, such as the permit checks for Estonia and Finland and the open urban platform for Rotterdam. And we are also part of this Horizon Europe 𝗀𝗁𝗶𝗿 project, working on innovations for the digital permit checking process. The products that we have are shown here. Today, of course, relevant are Clearly BIM and Clearly Hub. And Clearly Hub is the combination of Clearly BIM and Clearly 3D City, I would say. And then we are proud that we won the award from Building Smart last year with our great Estonian partners for the digital permit checks. And we are proud to this year be selected for the VDBE Awards for Most Promising Digital Solution. And now I would like to introduce our guest speakers some more. Christopher Raitviir from Estonia and Wouter Kolbeek from Woonstad. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no problem. Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Wouter Kolbeek from Woonstad Rotterdam, social housing corporation, and last few years I was responsible for our digital transformation of all our assets, our properties. So that's what I've been doing lately, and also working with the City of Rotterdam and Future Insight on collaborating in the digital city, in short.
Well, hello everybody, Christopher Raitviir from the Ministry of Climate in Estonia, and I'm in charge of developing the BIM-based building permit system and implementing it, and we're very happy to work together with such innovators of Future Insight. So hopefully we will see very soon BIM-based building permits in the national scale. So stay tuned.
Yes, and of course, what are we all doing it for? There is a need for digital checks and to put BIM-based solutions in 3D solutions. And it's all based on societal challenges. And I would shortly like to go into those, because those societal challenges and their needs, they lead to different ambitions and also to different uses of the BIM models. And I thought it would be interesting to see what the guest speakers, how they view the societal challenges and how does it affect their ambitions. And what we see at Future Insight is, of course, the building sector is really important for the economy and also our environment. And among the challenges are a great housing need. I think in a lot of countries, very much so in the Netherlands, and we need a permit process that speeds up, but is also correct. It cannot be worse than it is now. Better yet, it could be better. And we see the energy transition, climate adaptation. There is bigger need for transparency. So I would like to ask the guest speakers how their view on this is.
Yes, well, I can quickly react on that. I think our challenges as a housing corporation are basically the same. We have to build. There's a lot of shortage on houses. We have the energy transition, a lot of complex problems, and our challenge is to show that digital transformation is really helpful in it and will lead to benefits and is a good business case, and it doesn't only is a cost, but is much more a benefit also in the future. So that's I think our main challenge to prove that digitizing, digital transformation will help in all these challenges.
And I would add that these kind of like societal needs are of course quite same in Estonia as well. Of course, we are not developing perhaps that rapidly than in Netherlands, but nevertheless. And when we want to add more quality to the construction design, especially with this kind of energy transition and climate adaptation, we need to go even through more checks than we have done so far. And manual checking of the 2D PDF designs just seems so ridiculous when the market is actually ready to produce information-rich BIM models, not only the 3D, but actually the real BIM with information inside of it. And if we don't seize the opportunity to make it into this kind of like automated progress to take use of the computing capability, then we're just fools, in my opinion.
Strong words, but I agree. Yes. Okay. Well put. So now I'm giving the presentation to Marianne 𝗁𝗁𝗀𝗃, who will tell you a little bit about Clearly BIM and then give the demo.
Yes, hello everyone. Yes, I'm going to tell you more about our solutions to the societal problems, what we want, and I will tell you about Clearly BIM. First, to be sure, if you want to ask the questions, the chat is disabled, but you can leave your questions in the Q&A. And if you ask them there, we will get to them later. Now, Clearly BIM. Clearly BIM is a software to not only view and query BIM, but also make sure to do BIM in relation to the environment around it, and also to check BIM. So those are the few core strengths of Clearly BIM. And what's also really good in our opinion is that it's web-based, so you can access it from anywhere. And everything is hosted in the cloud. And not only humans can access it, but all functionality is also available through open API. And in this way, we make sure that not only humans can do things with it, but we will aid also in the automatic process of, for example, permit checking. And also it has some functionality to simply export it to also other formats, for example, CityGML and GLTF, and also make it available in a digital twin, because we view BIM not only as a model in itself, but we see really the value if you can combine the BIM with other data sources. So now I have talked about it, but the best thing, of course, is always to show it. And therefore, I will share a different screen. Yes, there you go. Right? Let me double check. Yes, okay, everyone can see it. Okay, well, this is Clearly BIM, the Clearly BIM project dashboard. Of course, BIM can be shared between organizations or inside an organization, and to manage different types of BIM, we have this dashboards in which you can see the projects that you are a part of and the organization they are in. So let's go to one of the demo projects. And in here you see that in this project you have a list of available models for this project. You can see they are all IFC, which is an open standard, which makes it that it's really available from all different kind of software packages. Now, if we want to preview a model, we can simply select this eye, and then we have a quick view of the model. Of course, we can also add a model, and we can do that by either dragging or dropping or browsing. And if we want to, we could also add a title, another coordinate system, a description. For now, we will simply put in a model. And while this is uploading, it's good to know that this does not only upload the model to the repository, but it also is put inside a BIM database. And in this way, we can query all the insights and the information in the BIM faster. So now we have it uploaded. If you want to change some metadata, we can do it here. We can also add another version. But now let's look at this model. And for those of you who are maybe less familiar with BIM, BIM stands for Building Information Modeling. And the first thing, of course, you see, oh, it's a cool 3D building. And we can do that as well. We can view it. We can maybe look at it from the inside. Let me put you right there. We can also do some filtering. Say we only want to see the 4th floor, or we only want to see, for example, the walls. We can filter it. But next to viewing it, of course, one of the things about BIM is that it is an information model. So inside this 3D model is also a lot of information on the object level. For example, the material, but also other properties. For example, this has some information about the apartment it is based on and what type of wall it is. And that's really the power of BIM. It's not only 3D, but it also has a lot of information. Now, this is only the building itself, but of course the building is part of the bigger world. So we think it's really important that we can also show where the building is located, combine it with other open data or open standard data. For example, this is the cadastral map of the Netherlands, and also with 3D layers so that we can really see the BIM in its context and also related to the outer world. And as I said, an important important part of BIM is the information and what you can do with it. And I think the best way to show it is to show some work we have done for Finland recently, in which we did a pilot project with the first steps to automatic permit checking. So here you have this model in Finland, and we can do some automatic checking with that. And that part is on the left, pretty prominent. And when we check BIMs, we make a distinction in two types of checks, IDS checks and compliance checks. And IDS stands for Information Delivery Specification. And that's a really important part of pre-checking, because BIM can have a lot of information, but it has to be at the right place, at the right attributes, before you can really do something with it. So an IDS check is basically a check to see if all the information that is needed to do this more complicated compliance checks, to see if the needed information is there. So this is quite a simple example. We only check two things here, the doors and the space, and we check if all the doors is external and is handicap accessible attribute. And as you can see, most of them do, but some of them don't. And that is important to keep in mind, because I will show you the compliance checking. But also we can see now already that if you do the compliance checking, it will only be checked for the doors which have the right attribute. So maybe something further in the process, you might say, okay, maybe we can check this model, but because it doesn't have the right information. But for now, we of course will check the model. And as you can see, part of what we did is we translated the real law of accessibility for buildings in Finland, and we translated them to machine checkable checks. For example, there is, here you can see the text of the law translated from Finnish to English. For example, this check said that the distance of the opening side of the door should be at least 400 millimeters. And now we can see that there are in fact two outside doors, and one of them does have enough room to open, and the other one doesn't, probably because it's too close to this wall. And these are really just some first checks to show that it is possible to check those. And in the end, of course, this could be elaborated upon, but it's a real good proof of concept. And I hope it will give you an idea of the checking that is possible. And also it's good to note that when you have done these checks, you can download, for example, a BCF, which is useful for modelers to see what they have to improve. And also, again, this functionality is now available for me as a user to use in the user interface. But we have also worked in this project with 𝘀𝗶𝗿𝗄, and they are able to perform the same functionality, but then using our API. And in that way, they are able to integrate it in their software. And that really allows this application to also be used with other applications. And I think that is that for the demo. I see some Q&As.
I think we have some time to answer them now, if you would like. We're on the time schedule.
I see a question from Alexander. Does the rules for accessibility for doors, for example, differ between the different companies? Do you need to adjust to different building codes in different countries? Yes, that's a good question, because that's also where we're working towards within, for example, the European Aqua projects, and also what we notice in the projects we have already done is that you can make a check very hard-coded and only available for that piece of law in that country. But we are working towards making these checks more generic. So, for example, if you have these doors checks, so in Finland it is decided that the door should have the is external attribute and the is handicap accessible attribute, and that the width should be 400 millimeters. And we are already able to change those parameters, so to say, to different parameters. So we are working towards making more generic checks that can be applicable to broader countries and companies, so to say. But you do need, in the end, we need to think about how can we adjust these checks and how are they suitable for the law in that country and for the building codes in different countries. Is the Dutch 𝗁𝗶𝗍 also a possibility to check? Yes, but it's always possible. But you have to work towards it, because what we also found with these laws is the laws are written from a lawmaker perspective, not keeping in mind that it could be checkable by a machine. So when you're working towards this automated checking, you really have to research these tiny parts of law and see, is this checkable or not? For example, in the 𝗁𝗶𝗍, there might be some definitions of minimal areas, and you can check those. Then you do need to define as a country, this is where what that is called in a BIM. And also sometimes we encounter laws that say, okay, this fence should really be strong. Well, then we can't really do anything with it because we don't know what is strong. You know, you need some more information to define that check. And then Menno asks, does the IDS check? By the way, Lynn, if I am doing too much questions,
no, I think it's good. We have some time.
Does the IDS check for the presence of data, like fire exit is present as property in a 𝗶𝗍 door comment? Or do you also check whether or not it is set to true? Yeah, Rick is already typing an answer, but I expect he is going to say that is exactly what an IDS does. It checks for example, if an IFC door has the property fire exit, and that is part of, for example, the 𝗶𝗍 door comment. But it only checks if the attribute is there. It doesn't check if you say the fire exit is true, if the door indeed is a fire exit. So that might, so you can know if the attributes are there. You don't know if they are correct. And that is what you will have to check with a different check, or yeah. I hope that answers the questions. What is your process if the IDS check provides for insufficient information as shown with some of your door? How do you ensure you get the missing information? Well, in the end, I think we are working towards a process that, for example, countries or maybe even at an international level, we say if you want to use BIM for permit checking, you have to follow this information standard. And if you don't, then we won't be able to use it in this process. So now we continue after, even though the IDS checks has some errors, because it's still early stages and we want to be able to do this check. But in the end, I can imagine that maybe we will decide, okay, if your model does not follow these IDS and we have errors, then we send it back, first fix those errors before we use it in permit checking.
Yes, that's the goal, I think, as well. You check if your model is good, and otherwise you get it back and saying this should be fixed.
Yeah. Okay, so I will try to answer some more questions, maybe just in the chat, or later if we have time for it. But maybe now it's time to move on again to the presentations. Then I have to stop sharing this screen. I will share the presentation again. And I think that Christopher, if it's possible, you can take control, and otherwise I will click for you. Yeah, okay. Great.
Perfect.
So, hello everybody. I already introduced myself, so I won't waste any more of your precious time and go straight to the slides. Let me see if it actually works. Yes, about BIM-based permitting. So the main thing is we have like 4 pillars that we are relying on. So the transparency, the speed, the quality, and the simplicity. So first of all, to make this kind of like building permit process more transparent, so both the applicants and permit issuers would be a little bit more aware about what's going on. Also, thanks to the automation, we can have the faster review, and going through all these kind of like elements in BIM and 3D design, we can increase the quality and the detail of the construction design. And very important is the last one, the simplicity, so that we have the web-based solution and very simple user interface, so that the permit processors who have been all their life doing assessment on the 2D drawings and the PDF documents, for them to start using this kind of very complex BIM software, which would be meant for the BIM coordinators and BIM managers. This requires too much of the training, and also if it's not web-based, they need quite expensive hardware, the computers, which is also usually not the case. So that with this kind of like web-based and simple solution, we can have easier interaction with the end users, so that the learning curve would be so much less steep. So trying to change the slide. So here I have a small video for you. I will go through, so I won't do a live demo. So here I'm going through 2 models. One in this kind of like project coordinates, not in the real location. The other one in the real location. And thanks to that, it has the real location. We can integrate our digital twin into it and take this kind of like surrounding environment, because at the same time, only the BIM model itself is being uploaded. We can filter the results by the successes, the warnings, the errors. And there are the different checking, so that first of all, Mariam was showing some checking. Now I can show you also some more capabilities. For example, if every living room, bedroom, and study are at least 8 square meters. But of course, for that, we need to define what is this kind of like room. And for that, we need BIM requirements for the properties. And again, possibility to check one element at a time, or all elements together. And this is this kind of like quite simple rule-based checking. And here, if we want to check the same thing, the living requirements, we can see that there are actually nothing to check. And this is because, again, by the requirements, we have the usage code of the building. And at the moment, we are looking at the schoolhouse. So we are seeing that the usage code here, this is like a high school or gymnasium building. And therefore, these kind of like requirements for the housing, which is for here, we can see that this is an apartment complex with 3 or more apartments. Then it's valid here and not valid for the other building. And therefore, it's really important to have this kind of trigger mechanism for the building code as well. Now is an example of a slightly different check, also rule-based, but a lot of connectivity graphs, so that we are checking if the apartment has access via the elevator if it's situated on the 4th floor or higher from the entrance of the building. And then we also have some fire safety checks, because fire safety is a real issue for all the buildings. And here we can check, for example, if all the load-bearing structures meet requirements. Of course, we can see a little bit red there, but these are false negative results. These kind of like facade elements, also some kind of foundation elements. But again, like fire safety specialist can quickly see it and understand that, okay, these elements don't have have to have the fire safety parameters on them. But if you would totally get out of false negatives, then we would have to make these kind of like BIM requirements a little bit too complex. Then we always have to find a balance between this kind of like complexity of the rules for the architects and also the benefit we get from the checks. And here is very useful check like the exit route. So that is the exit route short enough? And we see something red, we filter route green and yellow results. And we can see that there is no fire escape route, and actually this space is elevator. And again, we can download the BCF from the check results so that it would be easier to correct the mistakes. And at the building registry, we have like the two versions, like the previous version and the current version, so that when we are at the process, it would be a possibility to look into the past, at least one version as well. Also, there is a possibility to make comments, because at some points when we have the negative results, the applicant can already make a comment that it should not apply there. Of course, here for the school building, we see a lot of red results for the fire escape routes. And again, this is like the applicant's view. This has not been given into the permit process yet, so that they can actually see the results and correct the results before starting the permit process. And this is again a huge time saver, because if they would just submit their application, they perhaps have to wait 30 days or something like that to get the results back. And again, we also check the georeference, and we can see that the georeference is not within the bounds. And there are also some voxel-based checks. For example, we're checking the ramps. Of course, again, some geometry-based checks for the ramps, if how steep they are. So if they are between 6 and 10%, we give a warning. If they are more than 10%, we give an error due again to the text of the regulation. Also, voxel-based check if the ramp has enough headroom, so we need at least 2.3 meters. And if this is guaranteed, then we stop calculating with the voxels not to go into the infinity and save some computing power. And again, possibility to just download the BCF and to correct the mistakes. So trying to get out of the video. Let's see. Okay, but before, when I was showing the video with the checks, it's extremely important that the BIM model has the correct data in it. And we haven't implied it yet, but we are also looking very much forward to implementing the IDS, so that to make sure that these kind of like BIM models that come into the permit process, they actually have the relevant properties attached to them. So if the field in the property is correct or not, we can check during the automated compliance checking, but at least we can get an overview of what kind of quality the model is regarding the data. And at the moment in Estonia, we have the common BIM requirements that the model has to meet. Mostly it is like user-defined property sets. At the moment, they are in the Excel format for the architectural structure and all the parts of the construction design. And there is an example, for example, for the architectural floor covering. we can see that there is number 1 is the discipline, the architecture. On the column number 2, there are the attributes. 3, 4, and 5 are their connections into the IFC schema. So if they have if they are part some common property set, what is the IFC reference and what is the data type? And also the data type is important to use the correct things. Number 6 is an example how this field could be filled in. Number 7, there are like these kind of different dots from ES to the TE. This is the construction design stage that this kind of like information has to be present. And in the column number 8, there is this kind of like explanation about what should be put into the field. So, but we don't have everything very smooth. There are some challenges. Of course, there are these kind of like software problems. Every kind of BIM native software has some issues when exporting the necessary data from the IFC to the IFC format. I'm not going into the more detail about that. Whoever has dealt with the native softwares perhaps knows what I'm talking about. Another thing is these kind of like BIM requirements that I was just talking about. When we are expanding the list of our compliance checking, then we also need to add perhaps some more data into the BIM requirements. So it can't be this kind of like document that stays unchanged for many years. We have to update it continuously. And what Marian already mentioned about the legislation, that the law is not made so that it is always checkable by the computer. But I would also say that it's not always written so it's understandable and measurable by humans, so that there has to be a lot of collaboration between the legislators so that we would get this kind of like building code, what we need to check, it actually would be measurable. Otherwise, like the expression's strong enough and something like that has no measurability if it's not defined. But of course, the biggest challenge of them all is the implementation, so that to really get it out of there, to the hands of the users. Every kind of users have their own concerns. For us in our department, we have been dealing with software and the development for some years already, but every new user can have some questions and how it is they understand the system, and if they get some kind of like negative results, how do they deal with it? And also the permit processors, because we have so many different municipalities and different level of BIM awareness, so how many trainings we have to provide and so on. So it will be a hard journey, but I'm 100% sure that it will be totally worth it. And thank you very much for your attention. And Marian, control is back to you. And I will now look into some questions and try to answer them.
Thank you, Chris. I think I saw one question for you. I don't know if it was specifically for you, but it seemed so. And the question was, if there are errors in the model so that a permit cannot be given, what is the workflow for the permit handler to define what errors in the model have to be corrected before a permit can be given? And what is the workflow for the applicants to correct the errors in the model? So moreover, a question about the workflow.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, then we are doing it like this, that I was talking about the ability of the applicant to comment the checks, so that if there are some errors and there are some errors that have to be corrected, the permit issuer, they have also the possibility to make the remarks on this kind of like check level. They can just select an element, make a remark, and then it is stored in our permit system. And then the applicants know that they have to correct these things, so that it's sent back, and then the applicant changes their stuff and they apply for the next round of the permit process.
Okay. So, and what if an error is like a false negative or
Well, if it's a false
positive?
negative or false positive, and we are supporting this kind of like soft start. When we go live very quickly in the next few months. Then to have this kind of like soft solution, so that if there is a risk that for this kind of model we get false negative or false positives, so that the permit issuers would just not concentrate on these checks so much, and not start delaying the process, and just give us a notice in the ministry, and we will see what is going on with the checking mechanism, because we cannot guarantee that it will work 100% of the time, because every BIM model is a little bit different, and we have to go through a lot of models to be sure about it. But the idea is that if they understand already that this is a false negative result, then they just discard it. We are encouraging this kind of workflow that that the computer is not making decisions for you; it's finding information for you, and they have to be competent enough to make the decisions.
I think related to that is the question whether it's possible to define, for example, some inspections or real-world building checks. So apart from the computer checks, would it be possible to integrate into the permit process some inspections in the real world?
Well, I think this question was already a little bit before, but my idea is that for the building permit check, anyhow, this is the construction design level, is the design of promises, so that anyhow, these kind of things have to be checked later on. In Estonia, we have 2 stages. First of all, you get the building permit, and you start the build. You can start the building after that. And then we have the usage permit when it has been built, and then there will be audits anyhow, so that during the usage permit stage, I think these kind of checks could be implemented, so that what must be checked or so. But this is a little bit ahead in the future, I would say, let's say next year or 2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I think we are moving on. Right.
Yes.
And just one thing, I see that there is one question if the regulation is hard-coded into the Estonian system. So no, the regulations are not hard-coded into the Estonian system. It's rather encoded into the software, so that we are using the things. But as Mariam was saying, that they want to make it more agile, more flexible. So we are also, as a client, looking very much forward to that.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Now, Wouter Kolbeek.
Yes, a little bit of a different story from my side, but also a lot of similarities. So let's dive into that. Lynn, just checking if you see the next slide.
Not yet.
Not yet, just a moment.
Yes.
All right, let's go. So a quick introduction to Woonstad Rotterdam. We are a social housing corporation focused mainly on the city of Rotterdam. We have over 1,520 buildings, somewhat of 50,000 housing units, 6,000 student units. So if you happen to be in Rotterdam, chances are that you will find a house of Woonstad Rotterdam, because 1 in about 6 houses are from Woonstad Rotterdam. So that's a big challenge to keep all this maintained. Our ambition as Woonstad is to offer good and affordable homes. So we think that giving you a good home, an affordable home, is the best start in life. It's what you need to have a good life. And we say Woonstad Rotterdam geeft je de ruimte, so it translates into gives you space, literally and figuratively. So I think that's a good ambition. So challenges, there's a lot of challenges, but let's pick 3 which are big enough. So affordable living, with all the rising costs, inflation, etc. We really have to have efficient operations, efficient maintenance. Also to invest in new houses. So it's a double-edged cutting sword. So we have to be efficient, that's the key. The second one, climate change, is obvious with the energy transition. We have to do a lot of interventions on our properties, like installing solar panels, like isolation, etc. Also flooding and heat stress in cities is also things we have to deal with. So a lot of decisions to make on our assets. And with that, there's also a lot of more legislation in the past years, but also in the future. So accountability on used materials, like where is asbestos, where are lead pipes, etc. We all have to be accountable for that. And in the future, there will be, well, that's the topic of this this webinar, also digital permits, and also valuation of our properties. Are there more strict rules on how to evaluate them, on square meters, etc. So legislation rules are increasing, and we have to be more and more accountable. So all these challenges have gives us a challenge how to build a future-proof digital environment. That's the challenge we took a couple of years ago as Woonstad. And it really comes back to one basic question: what is our property? It looks like a silly question because that's what we do. We have houses and we rent them, but it's not as simple as that. So what is our property is the first question. And what data do we have on this property? Christopher also just mentioned the PDFs and the 2D floor plans, etc. But that's not what the future is. So what do we have on data, and what do we need in the future for our real estate data? Because we have to support these operations to be efficient, and we have to support more and more all these complex decision-making processes, like I mentioned the energy transition interventions we have to do. So our strategy was to invest in BIM and to take BIM as the basis for this digital transformation and for all these challenges to tackle. There was a long process, started with defining our needs, our information needs, with our IDS, which is the 𝗁𝗍𝗍𝗍, which is the industry standard for housing corporations. And from there on, we basically just modeled all our properties. It started with 3 models into 56 models into let's do the whole property of all our assets. It also meant a lot of testing, automated testing, like rule check testing, but also a lot of visual testing. It is an investment, so you also have to look at the cost side of it. So we went for some innovation in image recognition. So all the exterior data from half of our assets were gathered using image recognition, using machine and artificial learning to get all the data from the exterior. So we added that to our BIM data, and it ended up in a software platform in which we have all our BIM models and data as a basis to start doing the good things with it. So basically, our BIM models are structured data model for all our asset registration. And it's also, we connect external database to it. So we have energy labeling, we have research regarding asbestos, we have a lot of spreadsheets still, unfortunately, but we can upload them and add them to this BIM data. So we are building our asset registration from the BIM model as a core. And that is our strategy, to build on this data and to connect all linked data sources to provide maximum insight into our properties. And it also provides a visual insight. So we have the 3D model, we have the 2D floor plans, and we have dashboards regarding, for example, our facade or exterior, which holds all the data from our exterior, and we can provide this to our contractors who do the maintenance work. So we have a lot of insight now on our real estate. So that's what we've done internally, and then we thought, let's check with the city of Rotterdam if we can collaborate and share data and insights and work together on that. And we did that with Future Insight and the Clearly BIM platform. So we took one BIM model and uploaded the IFC file into the Clearly BIM platform. And usually I expect all kinds of errors and failures, but within 10 seconds, the whole building with all the data was uploaded in the platform. So that was really successful. And it was also uploaded then into the 3D Rotterdam platform. So you see 3 platforms here with all the same building, the same model, the same data. So that was, I think, really a good success. So from there on, we thought, let's go. We did some checks. Future Insight implemented our IDS and implemented also some compliance checks, which we just also saw in the previous presentation demo. So we did a really basic check, like all spaces should have doors. And in this instance, we see 34 errors, 34 spaces without a door. So I checked in this case what the problem was, and it is an elevator shaft, and they didn't model the door into the elevator shaft, so in space. So that was easily found. So there's also I think a nice example of the process behind checking. So you see an error and you really have to dig into the model, see what's the problem. Is it just a model error, or is there really is it a real error in the physical world, for example? So do you really have to investigate your complex building? But in this case, it was a quick found error. But it also shows how easy to use the BIM model and the data is if you work with a standard and if you work with a good IDS. So that was good to see. So next to that, we arranged a workshop with the city of Rotterdam and Future Insight, and with some colleagues from Rotterdam, Woonstad Rotterdam, to look for use cases in which we can work more together digitally. So there were a lot of use cases mentioned. I've mentioned a couple of them here. And one of them I think is very interesting regarding safety is we've got the more detailed BIM models, which we can upload into the 3D platform of Rotterdam. And that's very useful for the 𝗁𝗍𝗶𝗿𝗍, which is, for example, the fire brigade, to see where are the emergency exits, where are the fire hoses, and so they can be more prepared before entering a building. So that's a nice use case. Another nice use case for us as a corporation is the underground infrastructure. So if we start digging, or our contractors start digging, let's not dig into the pipes and the energy cables, because that's a lot of hassle. So if we can have data on the infrastructure, where are those pipes, where are those energy cables, we can be much more efficient and have less cost, because we don't break anything. So that's good. Also, we had a use case regarding rooftop data. If we combine all this data, we can look for the best spots to install our solar panels. So that was regarding the energy transition, a nice use case. And also more administrative use cases, like we have the 𝗶𝗿, the basic administration of addresses and buildings. We have residents who apply for a parking permit, which are rejected. And then if you go back, it's only due to some administration errors. So if we align these data with each other, we can prevent this this rejection of parking permits, which is really not helpful for our residents. So basically, a lot of use cases were mentioned in this workshop. And I think that's a nice step towards the future, which would really be my ambition, my vision, that we work together in a digital ecosystem, digital metaverse. I don't know how to call it, but let's work together digitally. And if that could be an interactive workplace where we can work with partners in the city, share data, start workflows, maybe create solutions for all kinds of complex issues, or maybe some low-hanging fruit. But let's work together with all these data we have, with the BIM models, with the data from the gemeente Rotterdam, with data from energy suppliers, etc. If we link this together, I think there's a much better future for us. And I think with the Open Able platform, with Future Insight and the gemeente Rotterdam, we've made some nice steps into this future, which hopefully is becoming a reality. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Wouter. Marianne, do you take over? Or click on? Yes, so more questions. I think Marianne has done really well with all the questions answering. Were there any more questions that I didn't see?
Maybe I have a nice one. Sorry, Rick always there, also there from Future Insights, answering the questions. So I see one, what's the calculation when the investment pays off, which is of course fully dependent on which process you are improving, what's going on there, the size of the change. And especially what I see is that what we see is that the change of the organization in the end always is the most difficult part. Technology is just technology. There's a lot of cool stuff to do, a lot of improvements to be made. We can kind of do it. And I kind of feel that the bigger you implement it, but it's a really big change, the bigger the gains will be, and at the same time you should just start small, because if you start thinking about it and for the next 5 years it will never happen. So you should just start and experience and learn and do both the technological and improving the stakeholders part, getting people involved, getting the support for this kind of stuff. And at the same time, when you see what you can save regarding time savings, regarding improvement of quality, transparency, it is huge. But then you also need to really change the process, and that's the nice part.
Great. I do see we're running out of time. We will answer any questions that come in through the chat still, but I want to thank our guest speakers, of course, and our audience for being there today. And I really hope that we have inspired you, or at least informed you a bit more about this item of digital permit checks and involving the BIM-based check with the 3D environment. And I do feel this is a very inspiring subject, where you do see in front of you a future with automated checks, checking all the basic stuff. And then maybe the people have time that are now doing those checks to do the other part that is a bit harder, maybe the gray areas. And that will just improve the process. And also that IDS will help ensure that the models actually have the right information in them. Okay, well, to end with, I do agree with Klooster that agile starting is good, because change isn't easy, even when the benefits are clear. And we are happy to help clients however we can on this path, because we innovate with our clients, our products continuously to fit their needs. And just start agile with a pilot. We'll think along with you and show your organization and others that it is working, it can be done. And then we go from there. So we hope you reach out to us if you have any questions or would like to discuss your plans, and then we can see how we can help you. Thank you so much for today. Yeah, that was it for me. And thank you, Marianne and Rick, as well, for your input.